Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm Angela, integrative wellbeing practitioner at Creative Depths Wellbeing and founder of the Break Free program. So just make yourself comfortable for half an hour or so. Yeah, there's going to be some really valuable information in this webinar, which you can start using to take action today. So I'm going to recommend that you grab something to take notes, grab yourself, a cup of tea, glass of water, something like that, and get settled and get ready for this workshop, which is all about helping you to find out exactly how to shift those negative addictive behaviors and create a really fulfilling and craving-free life for yourself. Okay, so this is for you if you've wanted to break free from the horrible vicious cycle of addictive behaviors, of binging, and you've been trying to for a really long time, but you just can't really seem to shake it. You can't seem to be truly free from its grip. So maybe you've used detox services, you've gone to rehab, or you've just white knuckled it and managed to get clean and sober and feel like you've got things under control for a little while, yeah, temporarily, but you just don't know how to maintain it. So when something stressful happens or when life brings its challenges, as it inevitably does, you find yourself falling back into those destructive habits again. And this is for you if you're just sick of it, you want to stop feeling like a slave to the habit. You want to be able to have more stable relationships and to really rebuild your sense of worth and your sense of self-esteem. If you want to finally break out of the cycle of binge, abstain, feel deprived, binge, feel just crushed, feel disheartened, feel regretful, try again. You actually want this figured out. Yeah. If you want to be able to fall asleep at night without having a drink, without getting high, so that you can actually have good quality sleep and you can wake up feeling refreshed and ready to meet the day with actually some energy rather than real grogginess. And if you don't want to feel ashamed about how you spend your free time anymore, if you want relationships that are built on trust instead of kind of half truths, instead of hiding, where you can actually be able to be really present with each other and have those really fulfilling, healthy relationships. If you're tired of feeling caught in a roller coaster of emotions and of energy levels where you just, you just really fluctuate. One minute you're up, next minute you're down, can feel really quite overwhelming. If you want to be able to go out, see friends and socialize and relax and unwind like you see other people doing, but you can't seem to be able to go out without it turning into a bender or without engaging in habits that you're really finding really unhealthy. And this is for you if it's got to the point where you actually feel like that there's something wrong with you because you can't seem to break out of it. Yeah. And that's just such a horrible feeling. Like, believe me, I've felt it and it's utterly untrue. There is nothing wrong with you, that's not the reason why you can't shift these habits. You can't shift them because you haven't learned fully how to do it and been supported in that process to transform in that way. And who is this not for? Okay. This is not for you if you're just looking for a quick fix rather than for something which is going to be sustainable, which is going to be a lifestyle change, mindset shifts, something which is going to enable you to really thrive for the rest of your life. Because the problem with quick fixes and magic pills is they're just not really sustainable. They don't last very long. So if you're after that kind of thing, then it's not really going to help you. Yeah. And if you're not really ready for things to change, and if you're not ready to really try and implement and use kind of support and guidance when it's available to you, and to show up for yourself. Yeah, this, you're not here on this workshop because you're showing up for me. You're here because you're showing up for yourself. So fear of change. Fear of change is completely natural and it's totally human. Change is scary. The familiar, the everyday, that is more comfortable. But if you're watching this webinar, then it's because you actually want to invite change into your life. It's because you are dissatisfied with the state that you're in, that it's not healthy. And yet, if you fear change, that is totally natural. But if you're willing to let the fear of change stop you from taking action, stop you from living a fulfilling life that is free from craving, that is free from binging, that is free from other addictive behaviors, then it's going to be really hard for you to really make use of this workshop today. So take a moment with me. Yeah, take a moment. I invite you to imagine, what would your life look like if you shifted these habits? If you were free from persistent craving, so that your mind, your headspace wasn't dominated by stressful thoughts about planning your next binge, or about where you're going to buy your alcohol from because you're worried that the corner shop suspects something, so you better go to a different shop next time. Yeah, or you're having to plan in when you're going to go and score. What if you actually, that wasn't dominating your life, dominating your mind? What if you could meet the stresses and the challenges and the ups and downs of life in a healthy way, in a resilient way, where you weren't reaching for your sugar fix, your bottle, your stash tin? How would it feel like? How would it change things for you if your relationships were really based on truth, if they were fulfilling and they were honest, because you weren't having to hide the true extent of your habit to your friends or your family? What if you felt confident enough to go out and talk to people and be in social settings without the need of a crutch, without a fake booster that helps you to talk to people in the way that alcohol or drugs can seem to? What if you had enough energy left when you've finished work, or when you've got some free time, to actually put that energy into things that matter to you, things that engage you? Yeah, hobbies, or have more energy to put into quality time with your family, where you are feeling healthy. And when was the last time you felt truly well? What if you could regain that sense of wellness? Yeah, where you wake up feeling refreshed in the morning instead of rough and foggy headed. And biggest of all, what if you felt proud of this journey, of your recovery, empowered by it? How would that be for you? Imagine it now. And how to get there, that's exactly what I'm talking about today. So I'm going to describe the process that can get you to finally kick the habit without tripping yourself up through self-sabotage, without just being under siege from constant cravings that you don't know what to do with. Yeah, or you're feeling overwhelmed by the emotions that you were trying to numb out, that you're trying to take the edge off through your habit, through drink, drugs, or food. Yeah. and how to develop new positive habits, healthy coping mechanisms that are actually particular to you, that are not generic, because you could read a list of generic coping mechanisms anywhere. But what if you could find ones that actually worked for you, so that you could replace your old destructive habits with new healthy ones? So people across the country, people abroad, they've used this break-free process of mine to move from that vicious negative cycle of craving and of addictive behaviors to fulfilling and enriching lives. And they've done that without feeling deprived, without feeling like they're just dragging themselves through it. Because I mean, what kind of life is that if you're feeling like that? But they've managed to move through it, learn from it, grow as people, and their life has been able to be enriched and blossom through the process. And you can also have access to a free Tackling Cravings worksheet at the end of the webinar too. So does this sound like you now? Yeah, if you're tired of just feeling like you don't know how to react to cravings, you're powerless in the face of the cravings, that you've been trying to stop for ages, you feel unbalanced, thrown about by life's ups and downs, easily overwhelmed, and you find it really hard to be comfortable with your own company, you find it hard to spend time alone, you feel like a boat at sea in a vicious storm, and you just don't know how to weather the storms. And at times it feels like the ocean waves are just going to crash over your boat. Yeah. And you don't know how to get to a point where you can both weather the storms that come and find your way to calm waters again. If you know what you should be doing, you should be doing to be healthier, but you just can't seem to do it, can't seem to stick at it. You feel like you have to hide the real you have to hide the parts of yourself that want to engage in these addictive behaviors because you feel ashamed of them. And that's so painful, isn't it? So uncomfortable. And you want a life that is free from binging, free from other addictive behaviors, but you just don't know how to get there. So if any of these sounds like you, the secret is that none of these specific things are actually the real problem. The real problem is that you haven't been enabled to make the 6 essential shifts that I'm going to be talking you through today. And I will talk you through them in just a minute. And in the meantime, you might be thinking, okay, so, maybe this sounds all right, but who am I to be telling you anything? So I'm here because I know what it's like, I know what it's like to be in the grip of addictive behaviors. Yeah, I'd be there finding every reason under the sun for a party for one. Yeah, feeling good, feeling bad, feeling indifferent, every reason. Yeah, I wasn't confident enough to socialize sober. I was scared of talking to people. I would binge to try and cover up deep emotional wounds that I hadn't found an effective way to heal and be supported around. And I was trying to fill the sense of emptiness, of disconnection, of void inside me with anything that I could use to try and desperately fill it or just distract myself from it. Does any of this sound familiar? Is this resonating? If it is, let me know. Yeah, let me know your biggest barrier to recovery, to thriving, in the comment box below. I'd love to hear some comments now. Right, so let me just cover the old route, the route you've already tried. And that is where you try to resist cravings by sheer willpower alone, where you just try to ignore them, you try to push them away. Yeah. Where you force yourself to have a good few days, to be good for a few days, but then just find the habits, they're even stronger if you manage to get through those few days. You've deleted your dealer's number only to get it back a few days later or to get a new one. You try and hide the behavior, try to hide it from people around you, but then you just feel alone with it. These are the old tactics, like hoping it'll go away by itself, like thinking you've got one behavior sorted out only to find the tendency popping up somewhere else and then somewhere else and somewhere else. And something some people try as well is these really generic self-help books and positive affirmations. And these things have their place and they can be valuable, but alone as a tactic, not really effective, is it? Not effective in the long run. It doesn't go deep enough. So you're there like this little dude in the picture just running on the hamster wheel. This is the old way where you think, maybe you think you've escaped the hamster wheel for some period of time, and then something happens, something difficult happens in your personal life, or just the effort you're putting in to staying binge free, to staying clean, to staying sober just isn't sustainable. You reach breaking point and then you're straight back into onto that hamster wheel again, rolling around. And it's just so disheartening and so knackering and really depressing. It's such a depressing cycle. So the good news is that in this workshop, I'm going to be really outlining how to shift addictive behaviors and cravings for good. So this is not the old way, which is ineffective and short term. This is a genuinely sustainable way of doing it where you don't feel deprived and you don't feel overwhelmed. So the very first thing is to acknowledge the impact of the behavior. Yeah. And this is not the same thing as acknowledging that you're broken or that you're wrong or there's anything wrong with you. This is about acknowledging the extent. This is about acknowledging the extent of the impact of the habit, because until you see the behavior for what it really is, you can't open yourself to change. You can't be receptive to change occurring in your life. And then what do you need to do? You need to discover the real reasons beneath the behavior. Yeah, because what happens when you don't know the real reasons? What happens when you don't know the actual function of the addictive behavior? You don't know how to change it without simply denying yourself what you're craving. And denial, only leads to frustration, and frustration eventually leads to relapse. And you'll just tackle one habit on a surface level, and then boom, it'll pop up somewhere else, just like that game of whack-a-mole. But when you really find out what that part of you, the part of you that you're probably feeling quite a lot of hatred towards, actually, that addictive part of you, when you actually discover what needs that part of you is trying to get met through the addictive behavior, then you can actually start to get those needs met in a healthy way, in a fulfilling way. And as you do this, as you develop this awareness, this understanding of where the negative habits came from and what needs they're trying to get met in completely the wrong way, then you begin to develop compassion for yourself, and you begin to feel less divided, less split, less conflict within yourself. And this is the cravings buster slide, yeah? And it's about not actually trying to fight them, not trying to ignore them, because fighting them, trying to ignore them only makes them worse. Instead, you need to acknowledge that they're there, and then tell yourself that you are free to act on them. Yeah. But only if you want to accept everything that comes with that, all the consequences that come with that. And at the same time, you're going to reconnect in your mind, reconnect with your motivation, with your inspiration for being on a healthier path, for staying clean, sober, and binge free. So then, when you can see the consequences, when you can see your inspiration, and when you're giving yourself that freedom and that mindful pause, then you can make the conscious choice to choose differently. And this is the most effective way of tackling cravings and responding to cravings that I've ever come across. It really works if you work it. So here's a key one now. It's about learning to feel comfortable with yourself. Why is this important? Yeah, why is this important? Because when you're not comfortable with yourself, you constantly try to distract yourself when you're in your own company. And you cling to anything that might seem to offer distraction, offer comfort from that sense of dis-ease, unease that you feel in your own company. And that can be anything from, your substances to drink to food to try and avoid what you're feeling. And it could also be to unhealthy relationships. Yeah. And you don't know how to really be with difficult emotions in a way that is holding and compassionate, and a way that doesn't make them worse, that doesn't build them up. And you constantly look to others for approval, for a sense of worth, because you don't feel comfortable within yourself. And any tiniest bit of feedback, even if it's trying to help you out, can really feel like a criticism, and that can be a massive block to you achieving your potential. And when you learn to be comfortable with yourself as you are, yeah, and that is something that is an ongoing process. But what I talked about earlier, which is where you really start to turn compassionately towards the part of yourselves that is reaching for whatever it is that you crave, to try and fill the hole, to try and fill those unmet needs. When you start to embrace that part of yourself and meet those needs and nurture yourself in that way, you will gradually learn to be more comfortable with yourself, and therefore you will feel more at peace. Your mind will be less turbulent. You you will develop your capacity to be with and to tolerate uncomfortable emotions like boredom, frustration, disappointment. And in that way, you won't get so overwhelmed. You won't get so thrown about by life. And as you have that increasing sense of balance within yourself, you can develop more balanced relationships. And then, really key is establishing healthy coping mechanisms that are realistic to you. Because without these, every time something stressful happens, you will just reach for whatever it is you crave. You'll act in a habitual, unhelpful way until you've identified specific ways of responding to stress that work for you. So for some people, this will be things like breathing exercises, mindfulness, meditation, going outdoors. For other people, it could be listening to music, it could be doing art. Yeah, it can. For other people, it could be exercise, sport, cooking. The list is huge. And actually, in order to find ones that are actually really really specific to you, that are going to work for you, and in that sense are going to be realistic in terms of helping you, what you can do is you can make a list of activities that you've done in your lifetime that you've found fulfilling, that you've been able to absorb yourself in, that have being engaging, nourishing, enriching. Make a list of them and then schedule some into your week and try them out. And it could be that you try some and you go, oh, I'm really not into that anymore. And that's absolutely fine. Just move on to the next one until you find a few activities that you do which genuinely support you. And start to build those into your week as healthy habits, because as FM Alexander said, people do not decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. And through finding fulfilling activities that you can build into positive habits, you are literally getting off that neural railroad tracks of really deeply ingrained negative habits, and at the same time building new neural networks for positive habits, for positive ways of responding to stress and things, positive habits that fulfill you. So you're literally rewiring your brain, and this isn't something that happens overnight, which is why once you've found some things that work for you, you've got to keep doing them, because as you keep doing them, that is what will establish them as really positive habits. And over time, they will gather momentum and gather energy, whilst the negative, destructive habits decrease in momentum and decrease in energy. So autopilot, a lot of the time we're in autopilot, and sometimes it's helpful. Yeah, because if we were doing every single thing as if it was the first time, really basic things would take a really long time. But it's not our friend when we're trying to shift out of negative habits. Yeah, because autopilot is just trying to make everything easier. It's trying to help us avoid difficulty, discomfort. Yeah, so it has us reaching for the first thing that we think will take the edge off. So what you've got to do is become more aware of when you're on autopilot. And you can do that by just checking in and going, oh shit, I'm already acting on my last craving. Yeah. So that is quite often how it would be initially. By the time you become aware that you've acted on autopilot, you're already well immersed in the addictive behavior. But the more that you do that, the more that you notice you've acted without thinking, you've acted unconsciously, the greater your awareness will be around it, and the earlier you'll be able to catch yourself, until you can catch yourself at the point of the craving, do the process I outlined earlier, and make that conscious choice rather than just rolling on autopilot, which will also enable you to start living with intention. Because if you're on autopilot, how do you know what's working and what isn't in your life? As human beings, we have a huge number of needs. And if you're half asleep, then how do you know which ones are being met and which ones aren't being met in your life? And once you start exploring that, I really invite you to review the different areas of your life and to change, have the courage to change what can be changed and accept what can't. And look at your needs and think, what needs are being met and what aren't, and how can I find a way to meet those needs? How can I find a healthy, responsible adult way to get those needs met? And the last shift I'm going to talk about is all to do with reconnection. So why is reconnection important? So when you're disconnected, you feel isolated, stuck, shameful about your situation, trapped in your story. There's a sense of a real lack of meaning, a lack of purpose, and it's really hard to have much self-worth. When you reconnect with yourself And how do you reconnect with yourself? You reconnect through practices like those ones I've already outlined, by tolerating your ability to be with difficult emotions, by tuning in to your body, by becoming aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling in any given moment, acknowledging the needs, turning towards the parts of yourselves that you've rejected. And then you can begin to be more present in the world, turn towards other people, connect with other people, so that you can cut through that feeling of isolation. And you can feel vibrantly alive in the world. And I invite you to connect with what inspires you. Yeah, discover things that inspire you, that ignite you in a really positive and healthy way. And make the intention, the deliberate intention, to connect with whatever it is that inspires you on a daily basis. Yeah. First thing when you wake up, connect with what inspires you. Yeah. Before you go to bed, connect with what inspires you. Because when you do, you can feel revitalized. You can feel freer. You feel part of a bigger picture. So you're not just this isolated little person slogging it along in a really, really difficult world. You're actually part of something bigger, and you feel a greater sense of purpose, of meaning, and of self-worth. And the impact of this cannot be underestimated. So I'm going to give you an example now. All right. So one of my clients, Martin, so for all his adult life, right from his early teens, he was addicted to a wide range of drugs and alcohol. He had really low self-esteem, he was depressed, low motivation, his energy levels were all over the place, and he experienced a lot of social anxiety. We worked together, and through that honor, he was able to really break free from his addictions and rediscover a sense of meaning in his life. He learned how to open up, how to share, so he could develop healthier, more fulfilling relationships. He developed those positive, healthy coping mechanisms, so that he wasn't knocked about by every single stress and challenge anymore. And gradually he rebuilt his self-esteem. How? Through becoming empowered and proud of the journey that he'd been on, the journey of development and awareness and recovery. He recovered also from depression, and he literally turned his life around. It was really incredible to be part of. And what he said that Angela, she helped me turn my life around. I'm grateful for all the tools she has provided me with to deal with difficult situations as they arise, instead of immediately reaching for my stash or a bottle. And our supportive and non-judgmental conversations really help me to stay on course. Martin is just one of the countless people that I've worked with to enable really beautiful, profound transformation. It's such an honor to do this work. So let me recap. What have I shown you today? I've shown you a truly effective way to break free of binging and addictive behaviors. I've described why it's essential to uncover the why and the how of your addictive behaviors, of that part of yourself, what's really going on. I've told you the most effective way to tackle cravings, and how you can learn to be comfortable with yourself, and how this changes everything as you develop that ability to be at ease with who you are. I've shown you how to establish healthy coping mechanisms and new positive habits that are actually personal to you, that aren't generic, that actually work for you. And the simplest way to break out of autopilot. And in doing so, create a more fulfilling, vibrantly alive, and conscious life. Why spending a little bit of time each day connecting with what truly inspires you really just reaps huge rewards. And I've shown you my exact system to kicking the habits for good, so you can move from surviving to thriving. So why did you show up today? Is it because you've tried to find freedom from those addictive behaviors multiple times, but you just can't seem to be consistent and stick at it? That you're worried? Are you worried that living without your crutch is always going to be as hard as the brief times when you've stopped in the past? You don't know how to face life's ups and downs without binging, drinking, or getting high. Or you didn't before watching this, and you're worried about the long-term impact on your health. So just consider for a moment, I invite you to consider, what is the cost of staying where you're at? Is it costing you your health, your relationships, your psychological stability, your self-esteem, your dream job, your happiness and fulfillment? If you're sick of thinking that you've got this under control, only to slip again, if you want to be free from cravings and self-sabotage, you want your relationships to be healthier, without the stresses of binging, without the stresses of other addictive behaviors, and of trying to hide those habits from the people who are close to you. You want to find meaning and actual enjoyment, real enjoyment in life again. So the question is, are you finally ready to recover and to thrive? So do you want to know how to implement everything I've told you today to create a sustainable, recovered life where you can feel truly well again, where you can feel free from the shame of these habits and still be able to have fun and socialize? So there's two options now for you. One option is you leave this workshop and change nothing changes. You slip back into the cycle of addictive habits and continue to get on and off the wagon as time goes on. And just as someone said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So this is one option, and it's a really disheartening option. Or you've got the second option, which is to say yes. Say yes to vitality. Say yes to investing in yourself, your health, and your relationships, and finally get closer to living a free and balanced and fulfilling life. And I know how frustrating and defeating it is to not know how to make this happen. I've been there. That's why I do this. This is why I've shared my system with you, because I really want you to be able to implement it in your life and for your life to transform and become more fulfilling and more liberated. And I've set time aside to speak with you for free personally about how you can apply this process, apply these strategies specifically within your life, and how you can work with the root causes deeply enough for the shifts to last. And this strategy call, it is completely free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm purely helping you to really apply what you've learned here in today's workshop into your life and your specific situation so that you can find that transformation. So do it. Yeah, don't wait for your freedom any longer. Click on the link or go to calendly.com/creative depths and book a strategy call with me today. I would love to talk to you and to really enable you to break free. Thank you for joining me today. to your liberation.